Hey, buddy, you browsing the internet without any protection? Yeah, well, before you get those unwanted cybersecurity problems, how about you head on over to our sponsor, Guard.io, and check out their browser extension and mobile application. You worried about potentially downloading that gaming malware, even if it is a little bit too obvious? Well, Guard.io is there to make sure you stop right there, criminal scum, just to make sure that you don't click anything that you probably shouldn't be. Of course, if you ever come across Discord Nitro scams or scams of any nature, I know they can be appealing, you know they can be appealing. Guard.io, however, knows the absolute risks involved, and they're there to absolutely prevent it. Are you worried about downloading nasty Chrome extensions over the internet? Well, ladies and gentlemen, Guard.io is there. Do you know that there's something known as search hijacking? I know that sounds fancy, but it's actually a thing. It's when a browser actually goes out of its way, or any website goes out of its way to alter your browsing settings. And they change things that they actually shouldn't be changing. Are you worried about pop notifications, abusive pop notifications on your system? Guard.io is there to help clean it up. Ladies and gentlemen, all of this can be yours if you decide to join up with Guard.io and protect yourself against unwanted cybersecurity threats that live in the security gaps which standard solutions just absolutely can't keep up with. There's a whole heck of a lot of them, and if you're not able to keep up with them, which most people aren't, Guard.io will. It's as easy as going through to the Chrome or App Store, downloading Guard.io through there, and getting a free security scan and seeing what threats and data leaks you already have. After that, if you activate your free trial, you'll be able to remove these threats and protect yourself and family members against hackers and scammers, and again, everything in between. Check out guard.io/SOG, that's guard.io/SOG, and get a 7-day trial and 20% off your subscription and the ability to protect yourself and up to 5 family members. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get on with the video. Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar. Heists, bank heists, what do you think about them? While they're definitely illegal, and I don't condone them whatsoever, they're an interesting topic for many people, whether they watch movies about them, TV shows, or read about them, play video games. It's one of those crimes that generally makes the headlines, and it's one of those things that people kind of dream about. They kind of think about how something like this could happen. Now, you might have an idea of bank heists being kind of like the movies, but today's bank heists are literally from behind a keyboard, ladies and gentlemen, because today we're going to be looking at a Mexican hacker known as Neonet. Now, for the last year, especially the last month, actually since June 2021 to April 2023, up until like now, Neonet has been one of the most infamous hackers in regards to siphoning hundreds of thousands of dollars out of Spanish banks. Now, this guy's made around 350,000 euros as far as people have been able to see, which is about 500,000 Canadian rupees. But ladies and gentlemen, how did this person achieve such bank heists? Well, not only did they make a business out of it, but they're actually a pretty public figure. Now, Neonet, an individual seen on Telegram, which is an encrypted end-to-end messaging service, Neonet claims that they are the top G of all the coders, the envy of all the script kiddies, full stack developer, CH, since 2007, the CEO and founder of something known as Ankarex. Now, Ankarex, while you're only able to see a cache of it right now from this specific connection that I'm on, is a smishing service. So smishing basically being a portmanteau of, SMS, text messaging, and phishing. For those of you who don't know what phishing is, basically it's somebody or, some group out there that are sending fraudulent messages pretending to be someone else, or a bank, or, a service, or an institution, so on and so forth. Now, in general, a lot of these phishing services can easily be looked through, but the real strength of Neonet was specifically catering this to the banking institutions in Spain, and of course, later on, the rest of the world. It got to the point where looking at one of their text messages versus an actual financial institution was a little bit difficult, even for somebody that is really good against phishing services like me. There were a lot of tells that these people ended up plugging up, so generally, if it's a little bit hard for somebody like me to figure out, imagine the average person. It's because of how effective and catered they made their smishing services that it became as effective as it did, and that's how they ended up getting, hundreds of thousands of euros siphoned out of accounts. But let's look closer into their advertising and their Telegram service too. Now, Ankarex claims to have 3 founders. Neonet, which again is the actual person over here, 3 employees really. You've got Mersiva, which is the co-founder, and Batelero 67, which is the tech and support service. They say they're not anyone's reference, and they're not friends of anyone, and they don't recommend any sellers unless they're part of this Ankarex group. Ankarex here sends smishing SMSs, which again are designed to phish people, by pretending to be banks known as Santander. If you actually look at Santander, it's a massive bank that caters to small businesses, commercial services, and again, personal banking. So now that you know about this magical person Neonet, this cyber criminal literally operating for years, seemingly without impunity, and the group that they run, it's also worth noting that they have a public basic GitHub address known as Not Safety, where they actually are part of popular repositories that are all about undetected Facebook phishing with geolocation, Hatch, which is a brute force tool used to brute force most websites, and a whole bunch of nasty shenanigans. You might be wondering, how is this even allowed on GitHub, ladies and gentlemen? How is Microsoft hosting what appears to be a cyber criminals page? Honestly, that's a question that you should ask Microsoft, not me. So when did this campaign start? Obviously, all the way back in 2021. Now, in a lot of cases, people look at situations like this and they wonder, how can somebody hack banks and get away with it? Muda, how do you hack a bank? Don't they typically have the most, elevated security out of anybody imaginable? You would think, but today's situation is all about how social engineering is one of the best tools when it comes to hackers, and why anytime you get a shady email or a shady message, you gotta be extra vigilant, because that's pretty much how a lot of these hacks actually occurred. Now, Neonet, who actually is believed to currently be residing in Mexico right now, beyond selling those SMS-like services, those smishing services, they target big banks, big Spanish banks like Santander, BBVA, CaixaBank, Deutsche Bank, Credit Agricole, and ING. Big banks. And the way that they go for it is by actually targeting individuals, victims, the average person. And by stealing 350,000 euros around on average and compromising thousands of victims' personally identifiable information, the way that they actually went by going to it was sending, again, those smishing SMS phishing services. So to understand, the way that this hack worked was by using their service Ankarex, they started sending smishing SMSs to Spanish users, to random victims out into the world. They would get messages from, again, these, what they would believe to be these actual banks, all right? Un dispositivo no autorizado, seja conectado. So basically they're telling you that, hey, there was an actual transaction, a deposit, without any authorization. Can you please make sure that this is legitimate? People who don't know any better would look at these messages sent to them, click on them, and then usually there would be a link in them that would lead them to a page that looked similar to this. So for instance, this is BBVA and this is Santander. Now to the average person, you might look at this and say, oh, it's time to log in and enter and see if there's anything shady going on. These pages, while they look like they belong to the bank, are actually very well crafted phishing landing pages. And anytime you put any information into these fields and you hit the enter button, you're actually sending your information back to Neonet and the group of people that are running this entire criminal operation. You can even see in cases like this, they're actually talking about the actual emails and services they've grabbed. So for instance, one of the people who responded to a BBVA message ended up giving their username, their password, of course, their number, and again, this is how they would confirm that, hey, this is an actual legitimate send, and of course, they would then use the information provided to access their actual account. Now you might be like, but Muda, what if they had something like two-factor authentication set up? Now, there's multiple types of two-factor authentications. There's email-based two-factor authentication, which is reasonably secure. There's app-based two-factor authentication, where you download tools like Google Authenticator, Authy, Microsoft Authenticator, or something totally third-party, and those are very, very safe, provided you don't give anybody your initial QR code that you used to set up that two-factor authentication. Anybody that has access to that QR code could theoretically just clone your authenticator and just use that. There's also security keys like YubiKey, for instance, which are the most secure versions of two-factor authentication. Unfortunately, they're not the most widely used, which again is shocking considering we're talking about banks today. Unfortunately, the actual two-factor authentication that a lot of people here were using was the most easily accessible, but also the most easily exploitable one, which is SMS-based authentication. Now, you ever really set up a service where you give them your cell phone number, and usually as you log in, they'll send a text message to your phone that you will then, usually it'll be a 6-digit code, you fill it in, and that's an extra layer of security. What they effectively did was, as people had given their credentials, they had then used something known as SMSI, which is just one of many pieces of Android spyware that effectively allows people to spy on your SMS services and basically forward any message that you get to a secret Telegram channel that they would run. So if you look closely, the way that it's described is basically as the victim receives a code for any service. In this case, it's WhatsApp. So they got this code 123654, and for them, they're like, hey, this is my short message service code. This is what I'm going to be using to log in. At the same time as the victim received the message, the actual hacker received that cloned message and they found out this is what their code is. So now you can imagine they would use the credentials that somebody had entered in their phishing service, so enter that in. They would receive a message on their device and think, oh, that's kind of weird. Now at the same time they received the message, the hacker also got the message, and as you can imagine, they logged in. So realistically, if you ever get a message, if you ever get a code that you definitely didn't order as you logged in, be very careful and start changing your passwords. I made this same mistake years ago where I had received codes like this because people were trying to reset my accounts, only to realize that my account, my Android device back then, actually had malware in it similar to this, where somebody was spying on every single message that I got. It wasn't until I realized that I changed the entire way I use my cell phones, and I started separating every single device that I had. To give you an idea of the amount of people that they had ended up hacking, for instance, they have several devices, for instance, which have their device ID. So for instance, a lot of Huawei devices ended up being hacked. They found out what message and what service they were responding to, and in certain cases, they had obviously all of those short message login codes. And then they would use these and effectively log into banks, and then they would issue transfers and then transfer money from bank account to bank account until they effectively had it, either in cryptocurrency, or they would just have it in a shell, account somewhere that couldn't be retrieved from. That's how they ended up stealing 350,000 euros over the course of 2 years, especially in just 1 year, even if you wanted to look into how bad their criminal operations got. In a lot of cases, what Neonet was doing wasn't exactly the stuff of movies. It wasn't some crazy code that he was running. He literally created this service and started renting it out to other low-rent criminals as to make extra money on top of the bank heists that they were already committing. So realistically, this guy is not just a big criminal, but he's also the god amongst smaller criminals as he rents out his service to numerous people. And he's not the only one doing this. Neonet is probably one of the most infamous types of guys going around doing it, but there are several groups that are renting their services. Remember a while back we looked at ransomware as a service? A lot of organizations will just rent out their services for hackers to use, simply because it keeps a level of law enforcement heat off of them, but also it's just extra money they could be making on top of their already illegal criminal activities. Because remember, in the world of crime, what's a little bit more, right? There's never really a cap that you're supposed to hit. And of course, for different countries like Denmark, Mexico, Canada, they even had different rates because obviously, certain parts of the world may have extra layers of security, and you can also choose to charge certain people more depending on where they lived. They were so good at their phishing domains that even for the average person who was just looking into even if you were a little bit vigilant, some of the domains they had literally had the company names on top of them. So Santander, BBVA, Correos. And it wasn't just Spanish banks that they were hitting. There were banks from France, Greece, Germany, the UK, all the way up to the United States. So it wasn't just one country that they were hitting. Because this was an internet-based hack, they could literally target whoever they wanted. And that's pretty much how it went and gone. Now, for a lot of people wondering, wow, if this guy's so dangerous, why haven't they arrested him? Based on Neonet and his IP addresses, it's pretty much been known that he's operating from Mexico. He or she really, they're operating from Mexico at this moment. And so obviously launching a criminal investigation in Mexico is a bit of a tough ask. And obviously because these are cyber crimes and it's just really behind a keyboard, nobody takes this as seriously. Sadly. So obviously, Mexican cops aren't going to be on the ground. American cops don't really have the authority to get into. In fact, hell, any world police doesn't really have the authority to access Neonet aside from Mexican authorities. And who knows if they've been compromised or not in regards to the situation. There's a lot of money to be made, and $350,000 is just all that we know. Clearly, this is a big operation, and for these guys, if they're gotta pay off any cops, they have the money and power to do so. So what can you do to fight against Neonet, ladies and gentlemen? Honestly, be extra vigilant in any kind of message you receive. Be extra careful when you pick which two-factor authentication to use. Because as it is right now, SMS services that you're using as two-factor authentication and any page that you get sent to, regardless of how clean and real it looks, you gotta be extra vigilant, because it's not just Neonet you have to worry about. Remember, these services are rented out, and there's so many different Neonets that are around the world that are constantly using all of these services to scam every single person that they possibly can and basically exfiltrate their money out of their bank accounts. You might have some financial recourse, but these people effectively have this entire game on lockdown. And once your money is stolen, you might be able to get it through some bank securities, through like your government's bank insurance, but these people end up basically committing a bank heist and, for now, getting away with it. It doesn't seem like they're going to get arrested anytime soon. Now, when it comes to the world of cybercrimes, obviously it's not just Neonet you have to worry about, it's also geopolitics too, and I guess this is where we can kind of end it at too. Last time we looked into what happened in Guam when it came to Chinese malware being spotted inside US military systems, well, it seems as though the United States is actually claiming to hunt for a ticking time bomb of malware, they say. So the malware, one congressional official said, was essentially a ticking time bomb that could give China the power to interrupt or slow American military deployments or resupply operations by cutting off power, water, and communication to US military bases. Truly scary and damning shit. Now, it's not really something that I believe should be news, to be honest with you, because if you work in network security or information security in general, you know that your mantra should always be, I'm already hacked to begin with. Realistically, any network security engineer just thinks, oh shit, I'm already hacked, but do I have time to take a piss when shit hits the fan? That's really the question people can ask. When it comes to services like this and headlines like this, just remember that the Five Eyes intelligence agencies that surround us are filled with some really talented guys and gals. And no matter what, it would take a severe amount of stupidity on our end to leave our communications completely fucked up. So again, be relax, take care, and understand that the world isn't as scary as it seems. But to go back to Neonet, yes, there is bank heists happening all around us. It's just through digital ones and zeros. And in this case, 350 grand has been stolen, and it's been stolen in a rather simple way. But again, even if it's a simple way, it's a great highlight to showcase that even if those emails you get and those text messages you receive seem like they're just spam and filled with crap, you might be able to identify it. But the average person out there, especially older people that don't really have a lot of technical know-how, end up getting really scared about unauthorized transactions. They click on links. Heck, my mom and dad almost fell for a couple of these things too. I always get messages and I'm always asked, is this legitimate or not? And even for me, looking at some of the newer stuff that's released now, it's getting a little bit hard to tell. So again, even if these are simple hacks, these simple hacks ended up leading to around $500,000 Canadian dollars being stolen by a Mexican-based hacker that seems to be operating without any impunity. And not just stealing money for themselves, but also selling a criminal operation as a rental service for other budding cyber criminals out there. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you learned something today. Hopefully this opened your eyes a little bit, and maybe tomorrow you'll be a little bit more careful when it comes to that shady message you receive on your phone. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.